Hey guys, it's David. Today I want to talk about the NA Open Summer, or as I like to call it, the Twotanic. Basically, here's how I would sum up the NA Summer Open. For some reason they call it the North American Open Summer. I think Summer Open rolls off the tongue easier, so that's just what I'm going to say. How I would sum it up is they set the bar really high with the first two opens. And then to come in and go so far below it with this open. To me, even though I do appreciate them doing it, they don't have to do tournaments. And, I feel great for FT Win being able to get this big prize, being able to win their trip to Japan that they ended up losing after that sort of Ink Storm Platinum Cup debacle is fantastic. So there was a lot of great things that happened during the Open that I'll get into. But this is, like I said, so far below what they had with the other Opens in terms of, well, let me just go through the list of things that I thought they did wrong. I mean, first of all, 9 days notice versus 18 days notice for the last one. So that's half the amount of days. And 9 days, that's a little over a week. That's hard to organize and get your team together. I know Deep Blues couldn't get Keen because, Keen made plans. Of course, 9 days, that's hard to, cancel something, especially if you already made plans. They didn't advertise it on their YouTube. Last time they put it on their YouTube, I think it ended up getting like 200K views. You can check that out for yourself, for the Inkling Open and the Smash Open. So that's something they didn't do. They put out a few tweets, which is good. But that was their only advertising for it. Let's see, what else? There was no official stream, which was, in my opinion, terrible. They did record it. I don't know what they're going to do it, with that. Maybe they'll put on some sort of production. I personally think they'll just splice some footage into an ad or of some sort. I have no idea, but who cares? I mean, when it comes to a sporting event, people want to watch a sporting event live. They don't want to, watch the video afterwards. If they can choose to. Some people will TiVo it and say, "Don't tell me about what happened, Jesus," and they'll do it that way. But live, people want live events. They don't care about watching, hearing about what happened afterwards or maybe a month down the line. Because some people were saying, well, they don't want to stream it because they don't want it to compete with their viewing of the World Championship, which happened a few months back. I can understand that, but why schedule the Open on the same weekend then? Why not give it its own thing? Why try and do it like this? It doesn't make sense to me. So that was the other thing wrong. And what ends up happening, I think this is the worst part of the Summer Open, is the last Open, which was February, I believe, had 556 teams enter. The final count for the Summer Open was 178 teams. That is almost a 70% drop. It's technically 69, but I don't want to say that because, whatever. People are children. You're children, people. Jesus. But almost 70%. 69% drop in teams. That's humongous. That is ridiculous. The NA Open was the biggest North American Open, because it still is technically, but this is I think the TV Open can draw about the same amount of number of teams, with NA in Europe. 178 is not a big number for a Nintendo tournament. The first one had 600 something teams. Like I said, the other one had 556, 5,500 teams. And this didn't even break 200 teams. That's, to me, the most disheartening number And really the most disheartening thing about this whole Open is a huge drop in participation. I don't know if like some suit at Nintendo is going to see this number. I guess that's the real fear, is somebody, oh, well, look at this drop. It's probably not worth doing the Open anymore, even though, we made terrible decisions regarding, our operation of it. So that's a fear. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully we'll see more and, with some more thought put into it. Hopefully, something more like the previous Open than this Open. So that's really, again, summing up my thoughts on it. Like I said, they set a bar. They fell way below this bar. I still appreciate them doing it, and it's great for the winners, FT Win, that they get to go to Japan now. So that's fantastic. So what about the Open itself? What did I think of it? Thankfully, it was saved by a few players that were actually streaming. I know Ren from Sayonara streamed his set. I was watching that. Great job. Fortunately, they got, I think they got stomped pretty hard by Demise. But I do appreciate him streaming that. Thank you. Ross from Enlightenment, they ended up beating, I believe, they beat Deep Blues. And then moved on and got beat by Feed to Win, if I'm remembering this right. I really appreciate that. I really enjoyed watching that stream. And of course, the real talk of the Open, and the real thing that really saved it for me, was watching Bran and Synergy make their run. If you don't know a lot of people on the team, Bran's been around for a long time. Ant, Tim, of course, world champion from Deadbeats, and Bliss, who's also been around, heard his name around quite a bit. So, all these guys been around for a long time, probably not known nearly as well as a lot of different people. But they came to play during this Open, had a fantastic run, getting into grand finals. I felt bad for Zero and Demise. They really wanted it. But what ended up happening I was secretly rooting for Synergy, because if it was Demise versus Feed to Win, we would not have had a stream in grand finals. And I would have been super pissed, to be honest. I would have been happy about that. I think that would have been a disaster for the community, at least the watching community, the competitive community that wants to see, these events take place. We would have had nothing. We would have been looking at the score, which honestly they never updated the bracket. We would have to wait for someone to sort of like announce it somewhere, like, hey, we won, or hey, we lost. It would have been awful. It really would have been awful. But luckily, we got to see Brand do his thing. The set between him and Demise, Synergy and Demise, was fantastic. Right down to the wire. Last second overtime win. That's the kind of stuff that, makes competitive so much fun to watch. If you haven't seen it, check out his VOD. I'll link all those Twitch channels I mentioned in the description. So you can check them out, give them a follow, give them some love. Really appreciate what they did, stepping up. I don't blame anybody that didn't stream. I totally get that. You got to give yourself every advantage, especially when this kind of big prize is on the line. So I'm not ragging on anybody or harping on anybody for not streaming, but I do want to show my appreciation to those guys that did go out and do it. It really, like I said, it really saved the day for me. So that was great. There was a lot of drama after the NA Open as well, and we can kind of go into that, or drama surrounding it. You had Ice leaving FT Win. From what I some rumblings I've heard, it wasn't very clean break. So, some stuff around that, which is sad to hear. We had Deep Blues comp. We actually had Ice from FT Win playing for Deep Blues. That was leaked, I guess, by one of the people they scrimmed against that they asked not to leak it, and ended up getting leaked, which is pretty messed up. I mean, if you're scrimming with somebody, I guess, they're not bound by NDA, but to me, that's kind of a jerk thing to do, kind of a scummy thing to do, is to leak their comps. That especially, makes it to where you wouldn't, why would they want to scrim with you again? It's, I think, a very short-term, maybe a short-term gain by doing that, but a long-term, it's a loss. I think, trust is a very important part of a community, and when you diminish that trust, things aren't good. Things, get worse overall. Speaking of trust, there was some cheating going on by Ascension, who, if you might have seen last week in BNS, they did pretty darn good. I think they ended up beating Deep Blues, but one of the 5 on their roster was from Germany. Clearly does not qualify for the NA Open. You have to be from North America. So, I don't think, from what Jack told me, he didn't end up playing really until like the Synergy set, at which point they got caught and disqualified. I know Barry was saying like some other orgs should penalize them, maybe Ludi, ban them from the season. I don't know. I guess it's really up to them. It's obviously not associated with any other organization. I know Nintendo, they should probably do something, maybe ban those players from the next Open. That seems like a fair thing to do, but yeah, I agree that there should be some punishment for breaking the rules. If not, why even have them in place? But at the same time, when you start getting into different orgs, punishing people, like if Ludi were to do that, who's to say like next time a team cheats in like an Ink TV event, should people be going to Ludi and saying like, hey, he cheated here, you should ban him as well? You banned that guy from you banned Ascension for cheating in that other tournament. Why don't you ban, this other team for cheating in that event? So that's also kind of one thing, like when you're, I mentioned before, talking about TOs, one thing you do have to consider is how much you want to get involved with things outside of your own org, and how that could potentially, draw you into stuff that really isn't your business, to be honest. So that's up to them. Like I said, they should definitely get banned from the next Open, but as far as other orgs, that's up to them. Like I said, they could be opening a Pandora's box there if they want to take action against teams for stuff that happens in outside events. Oh, all right, next point of drama. Just trying to, there was a lot of stuff, so doing this off the top of my head. Get another sip. It's been a long day. Let's see. There's that. There is a seating thing, but that was probably the one I wanted to get to last. I did the leak. Next one I want to go to is there's a lot of stuff going on, guys. I can't even remember it all. The zero memeing on zero thing was another thing, which I thought was kind of a lack of tact. I mean, yeah, he was hyping himself up, which I don't mind. It's like, oh, losing's not an option. I'm not going to lose. We're going to become kings. There's nothing wrong with hyping yourself up. To try and get yourself motivated to that. In some ways, it's kind of weird, actually. I'll kind of get to my thought afterwards, but he was doing that, and then afterwards, you had Kaido. Oh, wait, it's not Kaido. It's Noctis. Sorry. That ended up, kind of like, after he lost, tweeting, Zero tweeted, like, oh, I'm sorry, it disappointed everybody, and then basically, like, he tweeted a screenshot at him of him saying that he wasn't going to lose, which, you know, kind of mean to kind of kick somebody when they're down, they're already feeling low, and then, you know, just sort of like hit them. That's like a lack of tact. Him and Noctis, there's bad blood between the two. I don't know who's at fault. Probably both of them are. But yeah, kind of mean to do. Not a great look, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, you can go after him, but Jesus, really right after the tournament. And then I think Jessex got in on it, and he put out some video that ended up getting a lot of blowback, which, again, lack of tact for sure. I mean, Jessex does this stuff. He's kind of like an edgy comedian. Sometimes, you know, you do stuff that falls flat. I don't like it, but at the same time, I also don't like the sort of like mob mentality. I mean, when it gets these like 50 replies, it's like, you know, is this necessary too? I'd rather say just ignore this thing rather than, you know, like, so screw you, or this is fucked up, that kind of stuff. I think it just creates more negativity, in my opinion. The weird thing that I wanted to bring up, and I was thinking of this, was like, you know, one of the reasons you talk yourself up, like Zero did, you said, you know, failure's not an option, losing's not an option, is because in some ways it motivates you to win. Because, you know, if you say, yeah, I'm going to do this, you know, you tweet it out, you make it, you know, public, you're held accountable then. You know, if you don't do it, it's embarrassing if you don't do it. So basically, you know, what motivates you is avoiding that pain. You know, positive feelings motivate you, but really short term, I'd say negative motivates you even more. When you're like, that paper's due tomorrow and you know you're going to be in a world of trouble if you don't get it done, yeah, that's motivating. That motivates you a lot more than positivity does. You're like, I gotta do this. So, in a way, what, you know, Noctis, sorry, Jesus. All these weird-ass names, I can't. Like, I'm gonna call him Obito at some point. I'm like, I can't get all these Itos down. But a lot of way, what, you know, Noctis and, I don't know why I'm going like Obito, Noctis. They have O's in them. Jesus. And Jessex are kind of like holding them to that. Like, kind of like, hey, you kind of put yourself out there, and now we're gonna hit you over the head with it. Like, hey, that happens, I guess. If you wanna, in some ways, if you want to go out and hype yourself up to avoid that pain, but you're not doing it, well, then you get the pain. You know, if he did win, hell, he would have been like, I called it, I did it. You know, he would have been rewarded for it. So it is a gamble. It is a gamble. I'm not condoning what either of them did, but in some ways, maybe they're doing them a favor. Maybe, you know, you got to have somebody that when you're, you know, putting it out there and saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then you don't do it, you got to have, you know, some guys that, you know, bash you a bit for not doing it. Maybe next time, you know, that acts as, you know, even more motivation to go out there and get it done. You know, I'll push it even a little bit harder. Who knows? That's kind of like a weird afterthought I'd just share with you, since I had it while I was driving on my forklift. And now we move on to the biggest drama of the aftermath of the Twotanic, which was the controversy over the top 8 seeding. So, they seeded, and I will give the TOs props, they seeded the Open actually perfectly for the first round. The top 8 seeds made it to top 8, which is always got to feel good when you get that right. So they end up making it. Then they changed the seeding after top 8. And this is where it gets controversial, because originally In Control was the 6th seed going into the tournament. They ended up dropping to 8th place because apparently they dropped a few games, and they said another reason was, you know, weekly tournaments, results from that were factored in as well. So Sayonara, I think Synergy might have been 8th seed. Synergy was 8th seed. They moved up to 6th. Sayonara, I think, stayed 7th. And In Control dropped down to 8th. And one of the things that In Control was upset about is Sayonara had lost more games in turf than they did. So, why aren't they being dropped down to 8th seed and them being 7th? And Demise apparently lost some games in turf, like 1 or 2, and they just sort of brushed it off as like Demise probably wasn't trying in that game. So that's where In Control was upset. They thought the rules weren't clear, and I think in some ways it was a bit of a judgment on the TO's part, which I guess, part of their job is making, judgments on that. But I don't mind In Control being upset. I don't blame In Control for being mad about that, getting dropped down to 8th seed. If I was in the same position, justified or not, I probably wouldn't have been happy with it. Ironically enough, Synergy getting, going from 8th to 6th is kind of what allowed them to make their run, which was, pretty awesome to watch. If they were stuck in 8th, if they, remained in 8th, they probably would have fought in feed to win first round, probably would have lost. Sayonara, and maybe, In Control would have done better against Demise than feed to win. They ended up taking 1 game off. If they were up against Low Key, I think they probably would have a pretty good chance to win. Low Key was a little weak because they haven't practiced too much lately. So they might have gotten 4th place, which looks better. Some people could argue in the end you got to beat the top team anyway to end up winning it. If they were to need to win the first round, they would have a really good chance to win the whole thing afterwards. Who's to say? Who is to say? The issue I had was when people that weren't even on In Control started going after the TOs, and I thought, you can criticize the decision and, their logic that they used to make the decision. That's perfectly all right. But, when you start insulting the TOs, like saying, they need to learn how to seed, or kind of questioning their status as some of the top TOs in the community, which I think they are. They have a crap ton of experience. Or saying something like they should never do a Nintendo event again. I think that's a little too far. You got to respect, people that are doing this for free and really, doing a job that I personally wouldn't do myself. So I can't criticize them too much when they're volunteering and they're doing a job that I would never want to do. So that was, it kind of rounds up the drama portion of it too. And I have arrived home. So this is it for the video. Hopefully I will try and do more. I really just need to get back to doing these sort of car videos because in my house, I'm mostly practicing playing Splatoon, trying to get anything I can done. Very large lack of time. So this is actually one of the times when I can actually talk. And it's kind of relaxing. Hopefully you enjoy it. Let me know. And let me know what you think of a few things about the Summer Open. Like, one, what do you think was behind the humongous drop in participants? Was it all on Nintendo, or do you think there actually is a drop in interest in the game? Two, what's your thoughts on any of the controversies? What would you like to see going forward in an Open? Should they go back to this other format, or do you think we're going to be stuck with this shadow of an Open? So that's it for my video, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.